Do you want to turn your ideas into profitable and sustainable businesses? That's what we're talking about today. So my name's Leah, and with me is Luke Grace, and we are doing a series which is called Unlock Your Creativity. So last session it was all around discovery, and today is all going to be around Propel. So we're taking all of those ideas and we're turning them into actionable steps so we can start actually forming those ideas into a business. So how are you today, Luke?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm excited for this actually, because this feels like my more comfortable area of exploration.
Yeah, this is, I think when you go into the world of like coaching, this is what coaches are really kind of designed to do. It's taking that dream that somebody has, that idea, and turning it into action, turning it into something that's tangible, and it's great when you're working with people, you see them take the steps and they've got, real objective kind of results that they've gained through proving to themselves that they can be that thing that truly they want to be. But it's not just a want that's come out of nowhere. They've done the work in the discovery to understand what they choose. They've taken that empowered kind of moment to really check in with themselves. Often that's something that people have never done, but then seeing them manifest that, it's a word that's used a lot, manifestation. It's just called seeing them create it in their life, and that moment kind of in their eyes where they're like, I can do this, I can be this thing. We spoke about in the first one, you do whatever you do for you and you make it about them. When it's, this job and what I do being for me, it's those moments, that moment, like the light bulb goes off and it's like, oh, I do create what I want. So yeah, this is the bit where it all starts moving, momentum's built up. Yeah. It's good.
So yeah, I mean, over the course of this 4-part series, we want to discuss a bit more about accessing your creativity and how you can turn it into a business. So we're looking at kind of the 4 stages that we've identified that are the cycle of creativity, so to speak. So we have discover is the kind of natural starting point. Obviously, everything's cyclical, so it doesn't begin and end, but that's kind of the natural start. Then propel is about turning it into action. Then we move into what we call nurture, which is around kind of growing and maintaining. And then we always love to finish with celebrate, because I think we've said this before too, we don't celebrate enough. So we definitely want to make sure we're focusing on the celebration as part of like the cycle as well. So the natural point of beginning was discover, which was last time, and now we're moving into propel. So what is propelling? What's propelling to you, Luke?
So for me, it's literally that moment where that inspiration turns into action. Mm-hmm. A big one that I talk about is imperfect action, but I know you bring it in terms of starting to make it fun, which is also really important because it's got to be playful. And yeah, it's where it all kicks off. It's where it all kicks off. But as it does, there's various different blocks that, from my point of view, looking at mindset and the perspective that people have, they come up against. And I know for you, this is where the finances really begin to step in.
Yeah, so I feel like propel is getting all that fun, all that discovery energy and putting your business hat on. So we're turning all that fun into actual results or starting to create results. So in my own journey, and something I work a lot with clients on, is this feeling of fear. So fear appears at all stages of the cycle of creativity, but probably for me, I find it resonates most in this stage. It's like, all right, I have an idea, but how can I make it a business? Is it even viable as a business? And do I have the belief in myself to actually make this into a thing? So there's 2 types of fear that I really identify with, which are fear of success and fear of failure. So we're constantly kind of yo-yoing between the 2. Have you found that type of fear with yourself and your clients too?
Oh yeah, constantly.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing when you're working with a coach. You've got to be candid with your clients. You don't want to go into too much of what you're going through, but you're putting into practice things that have worked for you, and you're offering them those insights. If it hasn't worked for you, and you've just read it out of a book, really you should just recommend the book. But that feeling of fear of, like you say, success and failure, for me, I break it down to fear of acceptance. You know, and am I able to accept myself, put it out there and see if that's accepted by other people? And it's also a balance with respect for me. Okay, so it's the masculine and feminine, which I'll go into a little bit more, but that element of respect, like when something's been brought to you through inspiration and you know that that's a great idea, I think regret actually comes through not taking action and a disrespecting on an urge that you have, okay, to go forward. So I'm always looking at it through the lens of acceptance and respect and how that balances out. But yeah, fear's a constant. Yeah, it's an interesting one to play with.
It is. And I think that swing as well kind of comes in, and you mentioned imperfect action or taking imperfect action. So another kind of swing that happens a lot is between perfectionism and procrastination. So this idea that, and maybe perfectionism is kind of a good way to say you have a fear of success because you want to make sure it's perfect, and you delay and you hold on to ideas and you don't actually put anything out there. You may be scared of what other people think of you. Say you're trying to set up a social media profile and you want to put yourself out there, and you're really scared that other people are going to judge you because you're still in the beginning stages. So you spend all this time like putting together perfect content or perfect posts. And I know I'm definitely a victim of this. It's something I've struggled with. I took a long time to put my own stuff out, even though I'm working with clients in the background, constantly just worried that it's not perfect, that it's not like the shiny final edition. When the reality is, if you put it out there, you can always like make iterations, you can improve it as you go, and it's more reactive that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's going to be a constant evolution, right? But you've got to take that first step. It's almost like the path that's in front of you doesn't reveal itself until you take the step forward. And you have to take that moment to put your foot out there. There's a scene in Indiana Jones where he's dealing with like these final 3 challenges, and one is he has to get from, you know, over this big sort of crevasse, he has to get from one doorway to another, and it involves him just putting his foot out there and actually going, and the path reveals itself as he makes that movement. You know, movement is so powerful in that way, particularly when it's driven by emotion. You know, movement is very, again, I'm going to talk masculine and feminine because this is what I do with my clients, but movement is very masculine, emotion is very feminine. And when you bring the two of those things together, you create something new. But yeah, imperfect action, that sort of understanding that you're not failing, okay, it's only ever feedback for a start. And also kind of enjoying failing gloriously. You know, there is something in that. There is something to be able to look at it and see the mistakes that you've made, be able to laugh at yourself and then tweak and enjoy that process of it improving. You know, when you talk about that idea of procrastination, if you are talking to somebody about this topic, the thing that you want to do, the thing that you want to put out there, if you can go up to somebody in a coffee shop and start a conversation, very quickly kind of get it to the topic that you want to talk about, or it naturally finds its way there. And as you speak about it, you lean in and the other person that you're talking to leans in, you're ready. Yeah, at that point, that thing that you're sharing with that individual is ready to be shared with everybody, right? It's just understanding that, you know, you're not making, or you're not putting your thing out there for everyone. You're putting it out there for the people that it works with. Okay, so it's Led Zeppelin didn't make music for Beatles fans. Beatles fans didn't make music for Led Zeppelin fans. They put music out there and then just saw how it was received. And it's a big block to get over. You know, you mentioned that difference between procrastination and perfectionism. When it comes to imperfect action, there's this classic phrase, which is progress, not perfection, which is a great phrase, right? Don't worry about being perfect, just start doing things. And I do really like that. Okay, but more than that, I really like the concept of excellence, not perfection, when you're setting standards. Not when taking action, but when you're setting standards. You know, if you're aiming for perfection and it's up here, you've basically given yourself nowhere to go after that. So if you reach your goal, all you've done is ticked, okay, that was okay, but it's perfect. And there's nothing beyond that. And in actual fact, all there is a lot of space underneath that in order where you can fall short. So, you know, to try and be perfect and aiming for perfection, it's a heck of a weight to put on your shoulders. Whereas the difference with With excellence is you're bringing your standard, your lower standard, to excellence, and it gives you a lot of space to expand into. You know, we spoke about that idea with discovery of like my daughter coming up to me with a drawing and being really excited. You know, it's because she's engaging excellence. She's involved in what she's doing. She's excited to discover it, do it the best that she can, and show it. You know, and there becomes a point as well with children where perfectionism becomes a problem. There becomes a point, you know, you talk to teachers about this, 7, 8, where suddenly they don't want to show you their pictures. Suddenly it's a private thing because they've got into their own head. You know, so it's about reworking that and getting to that place of just being excited to share and having that excellence. The other thing as well, which I'm trying to think of an example that might resonate to people. Okay, for those of you that have trained or done any kind of exercise and you've decided to put a diet plan in with it, a very common thing that I see is people aim for perfection. They've got all the macros written out, when they're going to eat, what they're going to eat, what this is going to mean for them, when they're going to train. And if you're going for perfection, imagine you have a breakfast and you're not thinking, you're on autopilot. It's first thing in the morning, you sit down in front of that meal and you end up eating something that's not healthy for you. If you're going for perfection, that's the moment where you go, well, my day's ruined now, so I'm going to eat whatever I want. And you binge and you go in this self-destructive way. But when you're bringing in excellence, it gives you this opportunity to reset. So you look at that breakfast and you're like, oh, I didn't mean to have a full English breakfast with like 2 sausages and like 4 slices of bacon. That's ridiculous. Okay, I'll engage excellence at this moment. I'll move that to one side and I'll make myself something else. You know, like I say, perfection is a weight that often people get crushed underneath. Excellence is just something that kind of kindly holds you accountable. So it's something that I talk to a lot, or speak to a lot about with my clients. It's a big one.
It is a big one. It's a huge one. And yeah, on the antidote, I guess, to how you can kind of get past the perfection. So there's something in, first of all, like if you have nothing written on your paper, recorded, then there's nowhere to go. So with someone who's procrastinating, if they're trying to create something, if you have nothing on that paper, where are you going to go from there? So I always say, write the crap out, like write it down. Even if it's really in your head, it's not what you imagine it being, just write it down, because once it's on paper, it's so much easier to go somewhere from there. It's like that ultimate procrastination that I know a lot of writers face, where they get writer's block. And the famous quote is just the step to writing is just sit your butt down on a chair, basically. Once you're sitting and you actually start writing, then you have somewhere to go from with it. And that kind of wraps in a lot to my idea of action. So for me, if my mind is busy and I'm completely consumed in actually creating and working towards something, I don't have time to worry or be fearful of success or failure, because I just don't have the headspace. So it's that in itself is a really great way to propel yourself from discovery into more of an active state. Yeah,
I totally agree. And that's the thing where the discovery is almost, again, going to masculine and feminine, nothing to do with men and women, it's archetypes. So in the masculine, it's the domain of the physical, the action and the mental process. And the feminine is the domain of like the intuitive and the emotional. And the discovery phase is very much in the feminine. It very much is tuning into that intuitive. It's tuning into that emotional, like what's here for me? Like, what do I want to do? What do I want to share? But then to create anything new, you know, you have to bring the masculine and feminine together. Okay. And that's exactly what you're saying in this moment. Like the emotion charges it, but then you have to use that charge and give it structure in order to create something, you know, and make action. When I'm working with people, you know, there's a place between being a therapist and being a life coach. And when I'm working with people, quite often they're either stuck in their mind thinking about things too much, or they're stuck in their emotion feeling too much, right? And the way to bring balance to that is by bringing the other one in. Okay, so if somebody's stuck in that emotional place, the mind has to ask a question, like what's going on? What is this feeling about? Okay, and if you're stuck in the mental place, it's time for the emotion to come in and give clarity, you know, and over these two processes between the discover and the propel, that's what we're seeing, and that's what you're talking about. And it's interesting because with the conversations that we've had where we've been supporting each other, like you have structure and you have organization and you have getting things done, like you've got that mastered. Yeah. So it's very much like the masculine side of things for you is simple. It's easy. For me, it's the opposite, which just goes to show it's not about men and women. It's more about an archetype that you are, and a personality, a characteristic. But yeah, when it comes to structure, there's nobody else that I know that's better than Leah with spreadsheets, checking things off, but also the celebrating, the emotional side of it as well.
Yeah. Thank you. That's very nice of you to say. I think, yeah, I feel comfortable in the structure because I know that that's what's helped me break out of my perfectionism and procrastination swing. I know if I've got a list of all the things I need to get done, regardless of how scared I'm feeling, I know I can tick them all off. And that's the point, like you said earlier, this is usually the point where coaches come in. It's in that time where you're like, all right, I've been discovering, and now I need that push or that plan to help me actually get to the next stage and turn that into some action. So yeah, I mean, we've touched on a lot of the emotional stuff. Obviously there's finance involved as well when we're starting to talk about propelling. There's investment, which is also emotional just as much as actual money. So this is a stage we've kind of recognized as a point for needing to invest. So you need to kind of start looking at your numbers, start looking at what money and effort and time you need to put in to actually make this a thing. So it's not going to happen if you don't do anything. We've established that. But yeah, then there's the consistency. It's kind of putting that time in, investing your time, investing your energy, and then also looking at your finances and going, okay, how much is this going to cost to get off the ground realistically? Which is also a very hard place to start.
So what are the key questions if you're working with somebody and they're setting up a business? What are the key questions that they have to ask themselves about their finance? Just a couple to give me an idea, purely for my own benefit.
So when it comes to a business, I always think you need to address the personal finance stuff first because that's your livelihood. So I always recommend you start with a personal survival budget, which is basically figuring out how much you cost to live. How much does it cost for Luke to survive for a month or for a year? So once you've got that number, you know how much is kind of the minimum that your business needs to be able to make just to sustain you, regardless of any of the business costs. Once you've got that in place, you can start focusing on slightly longer term goals. So the next is probably like your emergency setup. So what base do you need in place financially to make sure that you can actually take the emotional risk to starting a business? So I call this like your crisis fund or your emergency fund. So you figure out, based on that number you get in your personal survival budget, how much do you need to survive a month? And then you figure out what amount of months you want to be covered for so that you can start saving towards that goal. So once you know that number, and once you've reached that number of your emergency savings backup, that gives you the freedom to actually be able to jump and take that risk in an area that you were feeling scared before. Because, you know, if all else fails, you've got 3, 6, 12 months of savings sitting there that is specifically there just in case it all flops. But we have to be real. Businesses take a while to set up. It's not something that will happen overnight. So you do have to kind of plan ahead for that. And then once you've got that kind of foundation, it's about vision. So we've got to talk about the future and think about actually what you want here. So that's where you create yourself some goals which are aligned with your long-term goals and your lifestyle goals so that you can actually put a plan in place to how you can achieve it. It's all very well putting a budget together and going, okay, cool, this is how much I need for my personal life. This is how much I need for my business. But if you don't have any kind of direction for what that looks like, one, you won't stick to it because you'll be like, what's the point? And two, it's kind of just an unrealistic expectation. You're just putting that there for the sake of doing a budget, but without any real like thought into why.
What's interesting about that is, as you're asking those questions and I'm running through them in my mind, they are questions that I've been through. And I remember when I was first starting to work and starting to decide that I was going to put myself out there after 10 years of being in clinic, working one-on-one, and like, okay, with everything that's gone on in the world, let's get online. And I had huge amounts of anxiety over finance. You know, a dad, I'm a husband, you know, and there's a fair amount of responsibility that comes with that I love and I embrace. But the anxiety that I had about the money, as I started to ask myself the very questions that you're talking about, what was interesting was it actually massively decreased the anxiety, because it decreases and it removes the unknown. Suddenly, you know, like I say, I was almost too emotional, that it then got into my head and it was making me think too much. And I was in this place of, I was stuck of kind of non-action over the money. And just all I could imagine was that the money that I needed was this absolutely terrifying animal that was in the other room that was ready to rip me apart. You know, it's like when you have a mouse with a torch next to it, and I was looking at this shadow on the wall that I was in, thinking like, oh my gosh, this beast's going to come and get me. And then as soon as I saw it was asked those questions, saw it was a mouse, saw the torch, I could actually pick up the torch and actually illuminate my own way. And it makes such a big difference. And questions are so key. You know, the wrong question can lead yourself into an absolute minefield of just emotional and mental turmoil. But talking to somebody and working with somebody like you who can really structure those questions, and then around those questions put an even deeper structure in order to make it simple, just alleviates all of those stresses. You know, and I know from working with people far more on a kind of mental, emotional level, those stresses, when they get stuck in, you know, it can be difficult. But the stress is the opportunity to liberation as well, which is exactly what those questions are that you were kind of just speaking about. So it's interesting how simple it can be, but how complicated we make these things.
Absolutely. But I mean, we have a tendency to avoid these subjects, and especially money. People, it's not exactly an exciting subject for everybody. It's daunting. It brings up a lot of feelings of shame and regret or guilt, which kind of go back to our childhood as well. So it's just simple stuff that we're dealing with. So if you've already got those blocks, it's not like, don't beat yourself up that you are avoiding, because it's kind of the natural pattern of what everything that's happened before has brought you to. So yeah, I mean, it's that taking that time. And actually it's quite funny because a lot of the clients I work with have taken a while to actually reach out and get in touch. They've seen me, they've had me in the horizon, and they've just kind of thought about it for a long time before they're actually ready to sit down and go, okay, I need to face it, because it's not just working with me, it's working with stuff that's deep for them, and they have to be ready and in the place to be ready to accept that. So, but yeah, I mean, another part is accountability. So like what we do, we're accountability partners is what we call ourselves. So we kind of look after each other's interests on a week-to-week basis, like having someone there, especially when you're a business owner at any stage, like if you're discovering, if you're propelling, if you're nurturing or celebrating, having someone else who's got your back that can help you refocus and work through challenges and celebrate the good stuff is actually probably one of the key components, and you can't do without it. You just can't. Most coaches out there have coaches. It's one of those phenomenons. Anyone who's highly successful or highly driven has people behind the scenes that are working with them as well. So it's not just for, you know, your regular everyday people who may have a few little emotional problems. It's people of all levels, and especially high achievers.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. You know, and yeah, it's one of those things that's an investment, right? You know, at this point, we're talking about investment, not only getting things straight in terms of your business, but also how you're going to invest in yourself. You know, a coach is a great example of something that's really important at this stage, but also bearing in mind, starting to think now about how you build your business and the lifestyle that you want to create. You know, what's your investment going to be with yourself? You know, remember, this is for you. So how is it going to go from this propel to the nurture? You want to start thinking about that. So what does that involve? Like, how are you going to look after yourself? Does that involve a weekly massage, a monthly massage? Does it involve making sure you take time out to go to that meetup group? Not that it's happening anymore, but meetup group that's a book club, and that really feeds you. You know, at this point in terms of investing, it's making sure that you're putting that blueprint for the lifestyle that you kind of want when it's fully up and running. But this is a really interesting balance, I find. You know, you're going to have to work harder at the start, definitely. Some people can get locked into that mode. And then even when they're very successful and things are working, they can't move out of that. And fair enough, maybe the business is the driver, the business is what they really love. And that's great. Most people, it's for a lifestyle, but they get locked into that and then they're almost scared to leave it, to then have that lifestyle that they wanted. Equally, I see a lot of people, and I've been guilty of this with clinics that I've set up in the past, of wanting the lifestyle too soon, you know, and actually investing in myself a little bit too much, and actually that costing me and costing the business as it went along. And it's been a really interesting experience for me to go through, which I've learned a lot from. I don't make those mistakes anymore. But finding that balance of investment at this point in yourself is key. But it's really something worthwhile, not just thinking about, but as we were saying with the finance, asking yourself some good questions about and coming up with some solid answers. Yeah, really important at this stage.
Yeah, all about the action. That's what we're doing. So I'll include a couple of questions below the video, because I think there've been some quite good moments that we can kind of help pull that out of people. So if you can share them with me, Luke, I'll put them up. But yeah, so you mentioned already, we're going to be moving next into nurturing. So we're going to turn those ideas and actionable steps. How would you describe nurture?
Oof. Nurture, so is, okay, going down the masculine and feminine, okay? So the masculine archetypes, king, warrior, magician, lover. The feminine archetypes, queen, mother, wise woman, lover. Lots of them are almost a mirror of the opposite, but the ones that's really different is the warrior and the mother. And we all have both of these inside us, you know, masculine and feminine within us, but it's that mother energy. It's that nurturer, it's that communicator, it's the collaborator, it's the we are, you know, that's what nurturing is to me. It's that, I'm trying to think of feelings that would sum it up. Again, you can see how differently we work here, right? In terms of me going up to the abstract, it's that comfort food. You know, it's got to give you that feeling of I'm safe, I'm warm, this is where I want to be, this is what I want to do. So it's going from that inspired action at the start to like, right, I need to get focused and almost quite deliberate and almost in a way harsh if you go too far, to then relaxing back down into like, oh, this space has got me. That's what nurturing is for me. Yeah,
I think as well, to add to that, for me, it's kind of summer. If you were looking at the seasons, it's where growth is happening. So you've planted all the seeds, you've made your beautiful flower bed, everything's like ready. And this is where it's actually starting to grow, and you have to keep watering, you have to keep addressing it, making sure that nothing's getting too much sunlight and is getting enough. And I like the word you use, collaborate, as well. So for me, that's where you start sharing as well. So you're not just keeping this to yourself, you actually have to bring other people into the picture. So it's putting yourself out there, it's allowing feedback, it's allowing that kind of networking energy, which can be difficult for some people, but allowing the feedback to come and allowing yourself to put it out there and see what you can receive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I like that. It's good.
Awesome. So what can people do if they want to get in touch with you, Luke?
So at the moment, we talk about kind of propelling, getting things out there. Like I say, after 10 years in clinic, I finally got a business Facebook page going, which I'll be sharing the link of with Leah. Get in touch with me, there. Programs are getting put together at the moment on a variety of different topics, but mostly I'm working one-on-one with private clients. I work with 5 at a time, and I have a couple of slots at the moment. So absolutely, if that interests you, get in touch. But even if you just want to reach out, have a conversation, please do. Yeah, because working with other people, it brings so much more to what I can provide to everybody. As questions come forward, different challenges come forward from other people, and I'm able to apply kind of thought processes, it opens up loads. So more than anything, just reach out, get in touch. But if you are interested in going really deep and really making changes, I've got a couple of slots for private clients at the moment. What about yourself? How do people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I do have a kind of my signature program, which is the Money Mastery program, which is all around every aspect that we've kind of talked about today, from starting with your mindset all the way through to the actual action steps, the templates that you need, the spreadsheets, everything to get your finances in order. And then also delving into kind of the self-worth, setting your price, that type of thing. So kind of all aspects of what you need from a business and financial point of view to be set up and ready. But at the moment, I'm actually focusing on kind of a smaller program, which is called my Money Mindset program. So to me, this is kind of the key stage, and everybody who works with me has to start with this anyway. It's around kind of activating that mindset, getting yourself in the position to actually be ready to talk about your money, and be prepared to talk about your blocks and anything that's kind of stopped you till now. So at the moment, I'm actually offering that half price. So if you're interested, you can either DM me, you can write to me on Facebook, on my Facebook group, or Instagram, and I can book you in for a call so we can see if it's the right program for you.
Perfect. Sounds amazing.
Cool. Well, thank you. You can book a session. Yeah. Awesome. Well, it's been awesome to chat. I've loved this module. For me, it's like, yeah, this is the exciting part, is just kind of planting those seeds and like getting ourselves ready to rev up and actually turn those ideas into actions.
Yeah, lots of energy during the Propel stage, definitely.
Awesome. Looking forward to seeing you next time for Nurture.
You too. Thank you. Cheers. Thank you.